The story begins with Edward is a small business owner, and the wife Connie takes care of the house full-time. Connie makes sure to cook 3 meals a day and takes her son to school, and back she enjoys going to charity options for fun. They've been married for 11 years and have an 8-year-old son. Their life is easygoing and relaxed. Their family is really happy and admired by others. However, after a while, the wife started feeling a bit bored with the same routine. Then, on a windy day, strong gust of wind blew trash around the streets. In a chaotic manner, Connie faced the strong wind and went outside to buy something. The wind was so powerful that even a taxi wouldn't stop. At that moment, the strong wind pushed her into the arms of a good-looking man. They both ended up falling to the ground, and the things they were holding were carried away by the wind. Connie had no choice but to sit on the steps while he tried to call a taxi, but the bad weather made it difficult to find one. No taxi wanted him. Oh, stop. A man named Paul asked her to come to his house to take care of her wound. Connie thought for a bit and then went with him. His home looked like a big bookstore with books everywhere. She went to the bathroom to take care of her wound. She still felt a bit cautious at this point. She was careful to make sure the door was locked after she opened it. While Connie was calling her son, she suddenly noticed Paul attending to her knee. His room was filled with books, and he had a mix of expressions and deep eyes. Connie got scared right away. She quickly looked for a reason to leave the place, not wanting to stay there. She worried she might feel uncomfortable if she stayed any longer. Paul handed her a book, which had content that made Connie quite annoyed. This felt like a playful joke to her, and as a woman in her middle years, she felt embarrassed. This situation was like a sudden burst of color in the dark, symbolizing life's vitality. After she got back home, her son noticed her injuries and ached her to ask what happened. He even used his camera to take some photos. When his father came back, the son showed him the pictures and asked him to take care of Mom. Connie shared with her husband that she had met a nice person. The following day, she placed the book on the bookshelf. She couldn't stop herself from taking the book out to read once more. Inside the book, she found Paul's contact number. She accepted that things had come to this point and took down the number standing in front of the P. Yet, when she hesitated, deep down, she understood the significance of making the call. Even though she was unsure, just as she was about to hang up the phone, she realized what her action meant. Someone picked up the call. This call made her feel optimistic, so she searched for a reason to express her gratitude. It's important to note that Paul is skilled in matters of love. Everything he did, every word he spoke, and even his tone of voice slowly eroded Connie's moral boundaries and her sense of right and wrong. Connie noticed that Paul wasn't sitting in an office all day and was occupied with work. Her husband couldn't make her feel the way Paul did. Gradually, she found herself developing strong feelings for Paul. Without even realizing it, thoughts of him would come to her mind while she went about her daily tasks. Eventually, on their third meeting, Connie and Paul became even closer than before. This time, their interaction was more intimate. As music played in the background, they'd hugged each other tightly and danced together. Paul continued to push Connie's boundaries, and despite feeling a bit unsure, Connie still had some clarity in her thoughts. At one point, she tried to escape, but then she realized she had left her jacket behind. When she returned to get it, Paul grabbed her and pulled her close. Slowly, her ability to think clearly began to fade away. They ended up being intimate on the train ride back home. Looking back, Connie felt a sense of guilt and decided to get off the train earlier than usual. The husband coincidentally met his friend, who shared some explanations his wife had given. This made him feel a bit puzzled, but he couldn't believe his wife would cheat on him. When he asked her directly, she assured him she loved him. However, from that day on, Connie started moving back and forth between her husband and her lover like someone who is cheating. She believed she could manage her family life and her relationship with her lover, but what surprised her was that her inner longing was much stronger than she had imagined. Almost like an addiction, she started having passionate meetings with her lover and even began openly dating and kissing him in a coffee shop, sometimes without realizing it. One day, a coworker of her husband happened to see her. After that, Connie started caring less about her husband and her family. Over time, her husband began to notice a change in her behavior. He realized she was buying new clothes and fancy shoes, dressing up nicely, and not being completely honest with him. He couldn't help but feel that he must have done something to upset his wife. Meanwhile, as Connie was on her way to meet her lover, she made a stop at a cafe. Due to a friend's invitation, she had to call and cancel the date, but surprisingly, her lover showed up at the cafe looking for her. Even though they didn't openly greet each other, Connie's heart, since what would come next, she needed a reason to get up from her seat and go to the restroom for a secret meeting. She came back when her friend was ready to leave. The three of them discussed marriage, love, and even cheating. Connie listened as her friend talked about the end of her own affair, which made Connie really anxious. She wanted to break off the relationship, but she was struggling because she felt like she was already trapped in Her husband and a colleague were arguing about quitting their job. As they were getting ready to leave the company, the colleague revealed Connie's affair. Suddenly, her husband realized he needed to hire a detective. Connie became increasingly upset, and she started losing interest in doing household chores. While cooking, she's so lost in her thoughts that she ends up burning the rice, all because she's trying to dig deeper into his wife's actions. The husband pretends to go on a business trip, but he actually stays behind. He noticed how eagerly his wife dressed up to go out. He was well aware that his wife had been unfaithful, and he was patiently waiting for proof of her affair. Connie realizes she got to pick up her son from school. This made her feel sad, embarrassed, and guilty. After all, her son is still very special to her at home. She cries a lot and then decides to end her relationship with her lover by calling him, but her son suddenly shows up and interrupts her. The son believed his mom was crying because she was longing for his dad. It's sad for the child. The husband received pictures from the detective that confirmed his wife's affair. He realized he had been deceived for a while. He would see how she was dressed in the pictures. Connie, while shopping at the supermarket, unconsciously covered her mouth and cried. She couldn't focus while driving in the heavy rain. She ended up crashing through the street railings. She reached Paul's building and was shocked to see her lover hugging another girl. Closely unable to control her emotions, she approached them and hit them. She realized she'd been deceived. She talked to Paul about the situation when she attempted to end the relationship. She got pulled back into turmoil. Her husband knew where Paul lived. She wandered around outside the building. Eventually, he couldn't resist the urge to go upstairs and explore the house's furniture. He poured himself some wine. After trying to calm himself down, he wished for a man-to-man conversation. He wanted to sort things out calmly when he inquired about their time spent together. But Paul didn't seem to understand his anger. Paul spoke casually, as if he was discussing someone else's affairs. This made the husband even angrier, especially when he noticed a gift he had given his wife in Paul's house. His anger took over, and he lost control of his actions. He took the gift and angrily threw it at Paul. Paul fell down bleeding and saw the situation in front of him. He understood the severity of the situation, but it was already too late. Paul had died. The husband wanted to call the police, but he hesitated. Instead, he began to clean up and remove any evidence from the room. He received a text message from Connie. This time, she expressed her desire to end her relationship with Paul, but unfortunately, it was too late. It seemed like things had reached a point where they couldn't be undone. The husband quietly placed the package and made sure to delete the message from his wife's phone. He then managed to move the body to the elevator. The elevator was old and got stuck, so he tried various methods to eventually get the body out of the building. He placed the body in the car's back. He reached the school for his son's meeting. He greeted his wife as if everything was normal. Connie saw her husband beside their energetic child and felt she had chosen correctly. Late at night, while his wife was asleep, the husband went to a remote garbage disposal site. In the field, he buried the body in the trash to remove any evidence of the car's involvement. The following day, he acted like everything was normal in front of his family, but his son sensed that something wasn't right. The husband cautiously asked his wife if she wanted to move away from the area. Then he drove the car to work. Just like before the police came to their house, Connie found out that Paul had disappeared and was actually married, which revealed that she had been deceived. In the end, she sends the police away. Connie gets rid of the book that Paul gave her. The family comes together for dinner at home, but beneath the calm surface, there's an unusual tension. Paul's body is discovered in a trash pile. The police return to Connie's house. Both of them are keeping their secrets hidden and not telling the truth to the police. But then Connie accidentally discovers a picture of herself with her lover in her husband's pocket. Suddenly, everything becomes clear to her, especially when she sees the gift she had given Paul at home. Finally, one night, the couple opens up to each other. They share their feelings of hurt and regret. The child is the one who feels things the most intensely. He feels that something is wrong with his parents' relations. He gently comforts both his mom and dad. Connie realizes that each of the crystal balls her husband had gifted her held a photo and a confession. It dawns on her that her husband is not incapable of being romantic. He just expresses it in his own way. She set fire to the pictures. She wondered how things might have turned out if she had said no to Paul from the beginning. Her husband wanted to surrender to the authorities, but Connie prevented him. Their daily routine continued, but it felt different. Eventually, the wife suggests they move away from the city, even suggesting buying a house on the beach. The family leaves their past behind and begins anew. Eventually, the couple drives away from that place with their children. It's unclear whether they're escaping or planning to surrender. Marriage isn't where love dies, but it's where intense passion comes to an end. If you want to watch more such amazing recaps, then do subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next recap.